Before we finish up with secondary sources, I am going to ask you to email me your exam schedule. This is so that we can jointly schedule the exam for this class, which is, I mentioned in the first class, we will find a day that, or several days if we have to, that there are no conflicts for everybody. So it might be a Monday for one of you and a Wednesday for another, however that works out. And then you'll have what essentially is a take-home exam, although it's going to be a little bit different than most take-homes you've had. And don't worry, we're going to go over the exam in minute detail at the end of the semester, but I do need to schedule that now. So what I have done on the course homepage is I've created a box here just over underneath the intro stuff, and the registration information, which is what's on the website. So I'll open it here. So the link is directly to the registration information, and as it says on the course homepage, you just scroll to page 24 of that. So I'll go back and scroll down 24. Now this is a tentative exam schedule that the Office of Academic Records put together when they put together all the schedules of all the classes. So on page 24 of the document, not the PDF, you'll see the classes listed in order of the calendar and what's when. So if you could just email me all your classes that have exams and what the date and time is. Actually, the time is important, because if it's an evening exam, then you're not expected to have an exam the next day. So I need to know that to figure out the days that you're all available. And if I could ask you to do that by next Thursday's class, that way I can, if I've got any questions, and we can start to figure that out. Any questions? Yeah.
I have two other classes that have take-home finals that haven't been scheduled yet. How do I that?
Now, are they take-home where they set it on a specific day the way we are?
Yeah, except for they haven't picked the date yet.
They haven't picked the date yet. What I will do, what I do every year, because it's kind of a funky exam, so I actually, once I get the schedule and get the dates from everybody, I sit down with Dean Casper in OAR, in Office of Academic Records, and I say, okay, here's the deal. And so just send that whatever information, including that, to me, and I will let Dean Casper know. And worst comes to worse, if I have to schedule another day because you have a conflict, I'll schedule another day. We will make sure that you can take the exam without a conflict.
So should we just note that when we email you, that if we have take-homes that haven't been scheduled yet?
Yes. I thought that most take-homes you were given a range, like a 72-hour range. Is that not the case?
Well, I have a similar situation where the take-home, but we're in the process of scheduling, and the professor hasn't gotten back to us yet, so I don't know if he'll get back to us by the time I let you know.
Okay. Well, then definitely let me know if this is the first time I've actually encountered this. So if I have to reschedule, so be it.
Okay.
Maybe I'm just a little early. Other questions? Okay. So let's finish up secondary sources at long last and talk about non-legal research. Because there can be issues that arise that you may find that you need to research medical information, business information, other scientific information. And yes, you can go out there and find what you can on Google, which is a totally acceptable strategy, again, being aware of our Wikiality concept of thinking about the reliability of that source. But there are other more formal databases available to you while you're here at Hofstra. They would be available to you as an alum if you come back to the building and come into the library. And again, just additional tools for that toolbox should you be in that situation where Googling your medical information just isn't pulling up what you need. So what we're going to rely on basically is the library's homepage. And again, this is available to everybody on the planet. This is not something that you have have to authenticate to get to, except instead of the law library, working off the law library database list, which we've been doing a little bit of, I'm going to still go to that topic list because, again, that's my way of getting to every database. If you have another way, again, that's fine. Some people like to use the search function. So here on the topic list, again, we've been working off this. We looked at article finding for the index to legal periodicals. We've worked off of some of these links here on the left. I'm going to work off another one, which is the Assigment library. And as of today, and I think probably the near future, unfortunately, there is not a way to search the law library specific databases like BNA, RIA, CCH, some of the ones we've been talking about outside, and Lexis and Westlaw actually, at the same time as all of the databases that the Assigment library subscribes to. Now, as you can imagine, the library services people from all different departments, not just a single subject of law. So obviously business, philosophy, medical school, you name it. So there's a much wider range. So as I said, I go to the Assigment library, and here you see their front page. But what they do provide is what they call the one search box. So all of those different databases from all of those different disciplines, they give you a box to search them all at once. Like everybody loves Google, the single box, so here is Assigment's version. This search will, again, not search the law library's databases. So the ones I mentioned, actually also Hein Online. Hein Online is more hit or miss. You may see some Hein Online in these searches for business reasons I won't bore you with. So this is a perfectly good start. So if we were in our secondary materials research starting to think about, again, more than starting, thinking seriously about ERISA preemption and thinking, okay, maybe we'll not worry about being preempted and just go with a federal case, but maybe we really do want to get out of preemption. What are the ways we do that? And one of the things we might have come up with is maybe it depends on the negligence of the plan administrator who denied our claim. So what is the standard of, well, care isn't the right word, but what's the standard practice for people who review medical claims in HMOs? That's not a legal question, but it might be one of interest to us. So I am going to, and again, I'm choosing of the many different terms that we've used across the last few weeks. I'm choosing these, but again, if I didn't get good results, or even if I did, I might want to try some of the other terms as well. Illustration. So what I am getting are results from a whole host of different databases. You can see in the results, it's kind of interesting to look which database that Assigment subscribes to. This one's Business Source Premier, so that's telling me obviously this has a business orientation. I think a lot of them probably will be because this is more of a business question. And then we can just take a look. As you may or may not remember, this actually looks very similar to the index to legal periodicals. That's because the database vendor called EBSCO, the same company. So it's nice to have that familiarity. And then again, just scroll through. You'll see lots of them have PDFs, which is very nice. And see what you find that might be of interest. And one technique I like to do with any database function that I use, if it's available, whether it's free web or subscription database, if there's an advanced search, I want to see, oh good, will that help me any? And so what we see is that familiar three-box setup that we saw again with index legal periodicals, because it's the same company, just a different database in there. So I might see if this is going to help me any. So again, I might try different terms, HMO, obviously health maintenance organization, denial of coverage. Actually, let's do that. So I'll type in the advanced search a slightly different view, or terminology, not really view. Okay, and again, we're within that one search, so we're getting results from all different databases. But as you can see, it's pretty specific. Although we do see this reference to utilization review. That's a term we've run into before. And actually, the journal is Issues in Law and Medicine. We've actually seen this article in some of the other searches we've done. So that's a really basic, easy, one search approach. Sometimes, like Google, it works great. Sometimes it doesn't work so great. And I find in a lot of the research I do, it winds up with just this wide variety of very specific articles that really aren't on point. And for whatever reason, what I find winds up being useful, and I'm going back, that's why I didn't do that. I'm going to go back to the Law Library homepage. I'm going to go back to my topic list. And I could probably click back, but again, however it works. And back to and instead of using the one search, here in Research Resources, I want to maybe pick and choose my own databases. Maybe I want to go subject specific. And my Hofstra tells me I have to log in, and what they're doing is they're moving me to the portal login. And again, you can do this. I'm essentially considered now remote, even though we're still on Hofstra campus. So this is how it would look if you were at home. And so type in my password. Good to know the university is open. And here we are at the Axon topic. It's the equivalent of our topic list. It's the different topics that Axon covers, obviously a much wider range. So here's some of the business accounting. If we were interested in health and medicine, and you can see the list here, there's lots to choose from. Even though the one search is pretty general, I sometimes like to go to a specific general multi-subject, because sometimes I'm thinking, all right, and what I'm interested in, is it going to be in health and medicine, because we're talking about managed care, or is it going to be in business? And I don't want to have to go back and forth and search for different databases. So what I might try is a general multi-subject, and one of my favorite databases, it's actually the first one I go to, is Academic Search Complete. And again, it's going to look just the same, and the strategies are going to be just the same. So I'll try managed care, and we'll try the same search again. Coverage, denial. And what I'll do now in Academic Search Complete is dive in and we'll investigate the features a little bit. But again, this strategy would work with any of these EBSCO databases that we were looking at, including indexed legal periodicals last time. So here are the results. Again, we see that same article. When I start to see the same thing over and over, that tells me, I want to look at this. So I think this is another one we might have seen before, utilization review. And what you'll notice here is there are a lot with PDFs, so bingo, you're done. You can find it nice and easy. Always a good thing. Unfortunately, that tie-in doesn't always work, and then you sort of see this hint of, well, if you want to have help finding the article. That doesn't necessarily mean that we can't get access to it online or even through interlibrary loan if we have to. But let's dive in here first. Because again, you'll see the same strategy. Here are subject terms that we can search if we decide, hey, this is a great article, I want to find others just like it. So again, you can use the strategies that we mentioned in the past. But I really want to see this. I don't know, enrollee appeals of pre-service coverage denials at 2 health maintenance. That sounds just like our fact pattern. So I want to see what the Journal of American Medical Association might have to say about this. And I'm not getting a link to full text. So the next thing I will do is I will actually go back to our topic list. Again, that's my starting off point. And and I will go to Journal Finder. Actually, the Journal Finder link is also on the home page as well. The point being, find Journal Finder. What Journal Finder is a service, again, by Axon Library to help find, when you get citations to journals, to help find where that might be in all of Axon's many, many dozens of subscriptions. So what I should have done first is note where's my article? That's what I get for having too many things open here. Nope, down there. That's not there. It should have been that one. All right, well, for whatever reason, we didn't get there. So let's just go back to Journal Finder. And what I should have done is note the journal information. Now where did Journal Finder go? Sorry about this. Alrighty, this is getting frustrating. Let's just go back and go to Journal Finder again. So here's Journal Finder on the home page. And what I did note down in my notes previously, so I don't have to find the information, is when I was looking at the results for the Journal of the JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association, I noted that it was from February 19th of 2003, and I would also want to note the volume and page number. So in Journal Finder, I put in the journal title. And we see here, it's listed, very nice, 1883 to present. And it's blocking my pop-up. So we will say allow it. Always watch for the pop-up blockers. It's when you can't get where you want to go, that's usually the reason. And so here's the JAMA website. They know it's us, so that means I've authenticated, which is why you want to go through the Hofstra pages. And then I just have to follow my nose to that article that I fortunately wrote down the citation information. And so we know it's 2003, so following my nose, I know it's in the 2000, and it's just then a function. If we're lucky, now you're not guaranteed that you'll find it, but it's a function of clicking through, so we know it was, we said February 18th, 19th. I didn't click on 2003, did I? It's always a good idea. Get the right year. Okay, so February 19th. And taking a look at the articles, and sure enough, there's enrollee appeals of pre-service coverage and wonderful words free in PDF. So I click here and I can take a look at it. And I don't honestly know why the Academic Search Complete didn't, in my results list where I saw the article reference, I don't honestly know why it didn't give me the link to the PDF. What's called open source linking usually should, but like all technologies, it's imperfect. So using Journal Finder is a way to make sure that or see if you can get it another way, and here's an example of that. And the other way, if you do get, again, a reference to any journal, and this is actually true of law journals as well as non-law, and just try a Google search, which actually probably is the first thing you'll do, which is perfectly fine. But that surprisingly works. What a lot of academic institutions are doing are putting up what they call institutional repositories, where their institution's publications, so we have one here at Hofstra, so the Hofstra Law Review, the Labor Law Journal, and our other journals are available online for free, basically going back to volume 1. So a Google search, more and more will be picking that up as well. So any questions on databases for non-legal research? Not something I expect you'll use very often. And again, these days with so much available on the web, probably a second choice, but a useful tool, I would think, nonetheless. Okay, another source for non-legal research are organizations of interest. Now, by organizations, whatever your area is, whether it's tax law or bankruptcy or food or employee benefits. See what organizations are out there. They put a lot of information and a lot of studies, and again, you need that wikiality concept in the middle of your mind, not the back, to excuse me, think about the reliability. But as you see just on good old-fashioned Google, I threw in a search, employee benefits organizations, and here's a list of them. And this top one, Employee Benefit Research Institute. That could or could not be useful. I'm going to want to take a look and see what I can find out about it. I'm going to look about the about to see if I can see what their point of view or bias might be. I'm going to look at the page and see what kind of results I get. But here, healthcare research. And I might use their search function, or I might use, everybody remember my favorite advanced Google trick, or advanced Google trick number 1. We'll have a couple of others. Putting the word site in front, and then let's throw in, I don't know, HMO. So I'm now searching, see all of the results of the eBree site, and I find out what eBree has to say about HMOs. So again, government organizations, interested organizations, we'll get to government in a second, useful resource tool. And yes, you might pull them up in your regular Google search without searching for organizations, but I don't know if you remember, so you'll have to take my word for it. When we did all our liability HMO Google searches, we did not pull up this eBree site. And if you were, I've investigated this before, if you investigate the eBree site, you'd find it might have some interesting information. Okay, so as I mentioned, organization sites, not the only resource on the web. Believe it or not, yes, I'm really truly saying this, good old Wikipedia. But again, be very careful about Wikipedia, as Stephen Colbert educated us. So I might do our search, and again, just putting in one of the many terms we've been searching, ERISA preemption. And funny, Wikipedia thinks I mean presumption, and no, I don't. But it does give me a link to the Employer Retirement Income Security Act, ERISA. And here's just some basic information. Honestly, I read Wikipedia. I'm not taking their word for what ERISA says and what ERISA doesn't say. There's actually even if you look at the contents, there's even a section on preemption. Unless it's very basic information that I need, I tend to go to Wikipedia for a couple of pieces of information. I go for, at least for legislation, I go for the public law number, which we'll be talking about next class, why that's important. And actually what I really go for is I go straight to the bottom for the references. Because to the extent that it is a Wikipedia article is sourced, this is where you'll find it. And I just scan to see if there's anything of interest. Maybe if it's a really long article, I'll go to the section and go to that footnote. So scanning in here, there might be judicial, may have made things worth for benefit plans. That's at St. Thomas Law Review. So here we're getting a reference to a classic legal secondary source straight from good old Wikipedia. So this might be not so much advanced Google techniques, but alternate Google techniques that you can try in addition to just doing the usual Google search. And last but not least, well, it's not last yet, but as I mentioned, there are also government organizations in particular areas of the law, and again, depending on the area of the law, and USA.gov is one way of finding them. Yes, Googling is another, but sometimes, again, this is a more targeted way. So, and there's a nice search, healthcare. So another non-legal aspect that might be of interest. And then you can see I pulled up National Library of Medicine, so health economics resources. Lots, of course, about healthcare reform because that's an issue of the day. I should reiterate on the course homepage in the class web links. I put some of the links, the ones we're talking about in secondary sources. Actually, I should put USA.gov in there. I will do that after class. So that's interested government organizations. And there's also state. Nope, not there yet. So this is federal government. Obviously, state governments may have an interest in whatever your issue is, so the same rationale for the strategy applies. So you might want to check out your state government. And again, the way I get to the state government is I just will Google. So anybody planning on going to a state other than New York? So I would New York State. An official New York State. So this is going to get me into government. Again, I can use the site Google search if for whatever reason this doesn't get me where I want to go easily enough. You might want to take a look at the agencies, maybe the Department of Health for our particular issue. Okay, now truly, last but not least, I alluded to this in one of our classes. Actually, that's not. Public libraries now provide access to residents of their town to various databases. And there are a couple of different sources for this, which you don't really have to worry about, although it's interesting to know about for a reason I'll mention. So I live in Long Beach, and so if I wanted to do research, I would take a look and see what Long Beach has available. So up here in research, search databases by subject, and see what Long Beach might have available to me, either legal or non-legal. But it's something, you all live in a town, which makes you eligible to use your library's, actually the actual physical library, but also to use your library's databases. And I'll tell you how you do that in just a moment. So here are the databases by subject. So I might try government and law. I'm going to go with health and medicine just because I already looked at government and law and there's nothing really great there. And here's ProQuest Health Management Journals. Now I'm not in the library, so at home. And here's the trick. You have to have a library card because they ask you for some sort of authentication information. So I remember to bring my Long Beach library card because I don't remember my barcode number for sure. But once you have it, and I did have to go to Long Beach to the library to register for online access, but that has a whole bunch of benefits, which I'll tell you about once I've typed the number here. In addition to giving me access to these databases, Long Beach and just about any public library these days also has access to ebooks. So for those of you who have a Kindle or ebook reader or on your laptop, tablet, phone, whatever your favorite gadget is, you can actually download ebooks for free, always a good word in my humble opinion, from your library. Another interesting resource is the New York Public Library. As you are all, I think, New York State residents, you have access to the New York Public Library. You actually have to go there and again register for access, which I did a couple years ago, and I have a New York Public card as well, but I can also look at their ebook. And I've done that a couple of times, downloaded ebooks from the New York Public Library because Long Beach didn't have the title I wanted. And so here you see the ProQuest Health Management. And again, we can do a regular search. We can go to the advanced search. The strategies, you see the usual 3-box. This is actually a different company. ProQuest is a competitor to EBSCO, but you can see the strategy and the approach applies. Okay, any questions about your favorite public library or non-legal research? This was a quick and dirty approach, but again, I think it's something you won't have to do that often, but may still have to do. Okay, so this brings to a close our first unit of secondary sources. So we have looked at encyclopedias, treatises, law reviews, some of the keys you want to remember, learning the terminology as you go. we started out with our issue spotting. We got the HMO healthcare health maintenance organization. We did think about denial of coverage, but we ran across managed care. Managed care turns out, as an alternative to HMO. We ran across that utilization review. We didn't investigate it too much, but in one of the treatises, there was a whole, in the online treatise we looked at, there was a whole discussion of it. So you want to learn the terminology and then incorporate it, either as alternate searches or realize, hey, wait a minute, this is a whole nother issue I have to research, like ERISA preemption. When we first started, we didn't know anything about ERISA preemption, and that's turning out to be key to however we're going to proceed. Just a little bit of flexibility in your terminology. There are a couple of searches where I did healthcare as one word, and there were a couple of searches where I did healthcare as 2 words. And that's because I tried it both ways, and you just have to be aware of how terms might appear. One of the strategies we just did today, checking out the advanced search, whether it's here on these non-legal databases or in our advanced search in Westlaw, which has some nice features, again, depending on the type of resource that you're looking at. We looked at the title search, for instance. And then, of course, probably one of my favorite techniques, and we're going to be using this in just about every resource, table of contents. Again, much more than just telling you what page to find a particular chapter on. Table of contents gives you the context. Maybe your search pulled up one section and really there's a super duper greater, much greater section 2 before or 2 after. Taking a quick look at the table of contents will tell you that. Yes, you could click on next section, next section, next section, but much quicker to look at the whole thing in context. Table of contents can teach you terminology. Maybe we discovered utilization review in the table of contents of that treatise. So that's kind of a quick and dirty what you want to remember as you think about secondary sources. And here's where the rubber meets the road. As I mentioned in the first class, I think of research rather like tennis. The only way you can learn how to do it is by doing it. So here is assignment 1. And we're going to spend the rest of class going over and then the assignment and some strategies and what I expect, as well as if we have time, we'll even do some issue spotting for the questions in the assignment. So we'll actually start as a group doing the assignment. So first, some procedural aspects of the assignments. This assignment is here on the course website under the listing assignments. And what I strongly suggest you do, since I'm going to ask you to email me your completed assignment, is to go here on the course website and download the Word document. And then you can download the Word document and just fill in on your laptop or whatever your answers. I think that will be the easiest for you. I actually distribute the paper mostly as an aid for this class so we can go through and talk about what the assignment is, and so you have something to look at. I hope you won't mind. There are actually a couple of typos in this printed version that I have since corrected on the online version. I didn't want to reprint out a whole bunch of copies because I figured it wasn't worth using the extra paper, and the typos aren't that significant. Okay, so first the assignment will be due 2 weeks from today. I will ask that you email it, and my email stamp tell me that it's by 4:10, so the beginning of class. I don't want you coming late to class to rush to finish up the assignment, so it's due at 4:10. The instructions. Answer all parts, as we're going to see in just a couple of minutes. I have questions, and so I have question 1, subpart A, B, C. Some of the questions ask you to answer questions 1 through 5 in 2 different resources. There's one question, and we'll go over this in detail, don't worry, in 6 different resources. Be a lawyer and be very thorough and make sure you've answered all parts of all questions. I cannot give you credit for a question you haven't answered. If you even put in an answer, you'll probably get some credit. So make sure you take advantage of that. For some of the evaluation questions, I ask you to stay within a word limit. The reason for that is I want you to think about your answer and not just throw everything you could have heard in the last couple of weeks and hope something sticks. I'm not saying any of you would do that, but I have encountered that in the past. So I do try to make the word limit very generous. In fact, I don't expect you to even come close to, don't feel like you have to, if I say 300 words, that you really should have at least 250. If you have a 60-word answer and you think it's a good answer, it probably is a good answer. Email it to my address, which is here and all over the website. You may work together if you choose. Teams of 2, 3, totally up to you. But your answers must be your own. So when I ask you for your searches, don't use the same searches. Certainly when I ask you for the evaluation, it needs to be in your own words. You might want to chat together with a friend and talk about, oh, well, what did you think? And get some ideas, but the answers must be your own. Again, also comparisons is another area where if I ask you what section is the best section, it's very possible for the same question you might both, 3 of you come up with the same section. I understand that. But again, the thought, the evaluations, the searches should be different. I'm not a Blue Book expert. I have very little patience with the Blue Book. However, I do ask you, when I ask you for a section, give me enough information to find it. So if it's an encyclopedia, give me the topic and the section number, not just the section number. I think I'm pretty good at figuring stuff out, but I'd really much prefer to spend my time giving you feedback rather than trying to figure out what on earth your answer was and does it make sense or not. Again, I'm not worried about Blue Book format, but just enough information. So, law review article, title, and if it's a really long title, you can give me just the first few words, and then volume, journal, page number. Year can be useful because year is important in terms of thinking about how good a resource it is. A law review article from 1970 isn't going to be as valuable as a law review article from 2010. Okay, so I've divided you up into 2 groups. So throughout the semester, there are 5 assignments. First one, you will be working on the same fact pattern. Half the class has one fact pattern, half the class has the other fact pattern. Just did it randomly by alphabet. As I mentioned, I will go through, if we have time, we'll go through and do a quick issue spotting for both of the fact patterns after we're through going through the questions. And by the way, I'm going through here. If you have questions, by all means, chime in with the questions, because most likely if you are confused, somebody else may be as well. In fact, that's probably, as we turn toward page 2 where the questions are, for all of the questions, if you are confused, what does she mean by, or what does she want, please ask me. That part of the class is class participation, and it could be that your primary participation is making sure you understand the assignment, and that's perfectly great. I encourage that. If there's something in class that made perfect sense when we talked about it 2 weeks ago and now it's kind of fuzzy, come ask. This is, as I said, this is where you're going to really learn how to do research, is by doing it. So if you're confused, ask. Oh, we lost our, I'm not sure there's much on the computer, but okay. So again, on the instructions on page 2, I'm asking you to make sure that your answers can be easily identified. That's just repeating. So part A is encyclopedias. And so I'm going to ask you to choose one of the national encyclopedias. So that's either AmJur or CJS. So choose either one of those, not both. So don't waste your time doing both. But I also want you to do, in addition to one of the national ones, New York. And then I'm going to ask you to choose Lexis or Westlaw. Totally up to you. The reason Bloomberg's not in there is that Bloomberg doesn't really cover the encyclopedias. You can also use print if you prefer, but then just make sure to follow these directions closely, because sections 1 and 2 won't apply to print publications. So once you've decided AmJur CGS, and also for New York Jur, you're going to use in question number A1, you're going to use a plain language search and search for your issue. And I'm going to ask you what your best plain language search was. So you're going to do that for, I'm just going to randomly posit that you'll choose Amjur, just so I can make this simpler. So you're going to do that for Amjur and for New York Jur. So under 1, I'm going to see an Amjur answer, and I'm going to see a New York Jur answer. Question number 2, now I want you to use a terms and connectors search. So and, or, /s/p, search for a relevant section on your issue. Again, what was your best terms and connectors search? Again, I'm going to see an answer for Amjur, and then I'm going to see an answer for New York Jur. What was the best result? If you have a couple of good results, that's fine too. I'm not that fussy. So again, I want a best result for Amjur, or CJS. Again, topic and section number, and I want a best result for New York Jur. How did you get this result? This is one of the key questions. Include any pre or post search filters. In other words, what were the steps you took? Maybe you did a pre-search filter and narrowed to Amjur first. Maybe you went to the post-search filters and went to secondary and then went to resource and then went to Amjur that way. Did you do search within results? Whatever you did, you don't have to, but just tell me the steps that you took to get to those good results. Amjur, CJS, and New York Jur are all subject arranged, so they have tables of contents. So we went over how to find that on the different systems. So take a look at the table of contents, just like I was just talking about, and see if you find anything else that looks good. If you don't remember how to get to the table of contents, come ask me. The folks at the reference desk can help you as well as if it's a generic question like that. Again, you're welcome. All the reference librarians know that I'm teaching this class, so they're all ready to help you. They will not answer the questions, of course, and they won't be able to answer does she want this or that? It's funny how many students I get showing me their assignment and say, does the professor want me to answer it this way or answer it that way? And it's like, I'm not a mind reader, I don't really know. So the other reference librarians aren't mind readers either. So come ask to the mind that came up with this, and I will give you an answer. By the way, on the website here, if I'm getting a lot of questions, whether they're did you mean, what do you mean, or it's substantive questions, if I get a really good question, what I will do is I will certainly answer the question. I will email you with the answer or answer it to you in person, however you choose to ask it. Email's fine too, by the way, if you want to email me with questions. And then if it feels like something that either a lot of people are confused about or really is unclear, believe me, I tried very hard to make this as clear as I can. But unfortunately, I'm not perfect at that, so it's possible that there's something that's just not clear. What I will do is I will email the entire class saying, hey, this is a really good question, or a bunch of people are confused. And in addition to that email, I will put it here on this assignment questions, in this assignment questions box on the front page of the course website. This way, if you think, oh, when I get to the assignment, that's going to be really good, and then you can't find it in your email a week later, which I don't know if it happens to you, it happens to me. So this way, those answers will be up on the website as well. Okay. So we talked about table of contents. I'm going to ask you just for New York Jur now, so you don't have to do Amjur or CJS. Use the index, whether in print, online, up to you. What did you use? List any other sections you might have found. Once you're looking at your section, question 7, skim the references in the text, and just skim. If it's a long section, I'm not expecting you to spend 20 minutes reading a 14-page section. See if you can find a case skimming through that sounds relevant-ish. Again, I know it's contrary to your every legal instinct not to find a great case. Don't spend the time. This is a research class, it's not a substantive issue class. So scan through. Honestly, I'm not really going to look at the case to see if it's really relevant. I'm going to look to see what I'm really interested in is what your research process is. But I want you to see if you can just identify a New York or federal case that sounds anywhere in the ballpark. And even if it's not, then tell me this wasn't really in the ballpark, but here's a New York case anyway. And that's perfectly fine. So I ask you both for New York federal case, New York federal statute, again, anywhere in the ballpark or maybe not even in the ballpark. Now I'm asking you to rate the encyclopedia, 1 to 5. You see the scale there. And then part B of question 8, explain and justify. And this is an example of where there is that word limit. If you're really having a hard time with the word limit, email me. I will be flexible, but again, try to keep within it. And I did try to give a very generous word limit. So that's the encyclopedias, and that's the typical format for most of the questions. You'll see part B, the web resource. So I ask you to search the web, Google, whatever search engine. What's an informative website you found? If you want to list a couple, that's great too. Again, skim the site and see if you can find any references to relevant cases. New York Federal, any references to relevant statutes. Again, if it's not roughly relevant, if it's not even relevant, say this is the best I found. Yeah, question.
So for that question 3, and also I guess for question 7 for encyclopedias, are we gonna have to list 4 things there? Because it says New York and federal for both case and statute. So in other words, you want us to list the most relevant case, New York case, and a federal case?
For question 7 in encyclopedias, yes,
Okay.
you'll list a relevant case
There will
for
be- so there'll be 4.
AMDR or CJS, so there'll be 4, yes. The website is just website, so it would just be the one site that you found that was relevant. So it would be New York and federal case, New York and federal statute. So yeah, it would be 4.
4, okay.
Okay. Here's where one of those typos were on the paper. You won't find it online. I'm just asking you if no citations, not if not citations. Then just say there are no citations. Not all websites have citations to cases or statutes. Although I will tell you, so I'll give you a little hint of the answers for both of the hypotheticals. These are statutory questions. Ask you for your best search, and I ask you to briefly evaluate the website for reliability. And again, just take a look at it, see if you look at the about, see who the website's by. Is it a .gov? Is it a .edu? Okay. Move on to part C. Any questions before I do? Law reviews. So in law reviews, I ask you to choose whatever database you didn't choose in part A. So encyclopedias, I asked you to choose Lexis or Westlaw. So if you went with Lexis in part A, use Westlaw for part C. And obviously vice versa. Okay, so I ask you to do a plain language search. What was the best one? Terms and connectors. So it's kind of similar to what you went through with encyclopedias. The best article, again, give me enough information so I can find it easily. Describe the steps, again, pre, post search filters, however you found it. What the steps you took on Lexis and Westlaw. Then I ask you in question 5 to go to the index to legal periodicals. Basically, what I asked you to do in the very brief workshop we had last class. And then just ask you what terms did you use, what was the best article, look at the subject headings as we did both with the databases today and last time on index to legal periodicals. If you found an article that you didn't, cite to it. If not, just state that. And then compare your keyword search to the subject heading search. So in other words, in the index legal periodicals, you just did a keyword search and then I had you click on a subject heading. Which one was better? Which one gave you better results? And why? Why do you say it's better? And then I ask you to compare the full text in Lexis or Westlaw search with your index legal periodicals search. And again, which was more effective and why? Okay, move on to treatises. There are no questions. Okay, here's where it gets a little complex. This is probably one of the most complex questions you'll see across the semester. I want you to look at all of those different resources. Again, I want you to see them and work with them even just a little bit. So CCH, actually there's a typo in there, but I'll get back to you on the resources. So anyway, Lexis, Westlaw, Bloomberg, and Google Books. That second one, actually the first one shouldn't be CCH because CCH and IntelliConnect are the same database. So I have a mistake in there. I will correct that on the online version. So look at all those 6 resources and looking for treatises. And again, just the basic looking for the treatises, typing in the words in the Lexis or Westlaw box, scanning through those other resources, basically just clicking on the links, and look to see if you can find one that's relevant. Pick the best one for 1 through 5. Now 1 through 5 are all of the resources except Google Books. Resource 6 is Google Books. I'm not asking you to list Google Books because you may or may not have access to Google Books, depending on the copyright issues as we discussed when we looked at Google Books. So I want you to give me for 1 through 5, what's the best treatise, best treatise, best treatise. So actually that's 2A is state the title and the steps that you took to find it. So the steps might be, I just typed in my words in the Westlaw box and I found this treatise, and that's a perfectly good way to find a treatise. Or I navigated through CCH and Teleconnect and found. Then I asked you to search the treatise, and again for the 5 different resources, and state any references, chapters, sections, paragraphs. I don't know what the treatise is you're going to find, so I don't know how it's going to be organized in advance, so use your best judgment as to what's the closest thing to a chapter, section, or paragraph. And if you're having trouble with that, again, come ask. If none, state it, but try a few searches. Again, don't spend forever, but try a few different word searches. Again, as we saw, some words like managed care sometimes worked, and sometimes HMO or health maintenance organization worked. So try a couple. And then let me know what your best search is. Again, look at the table of contents for the different treatises. Did you see any additional useful sections? If yes, state the section reference. If not, just say you didn't find anything. Whatever the most useful section is, again, quickly skim to see if you see any cases, federal and New York cases, and federal New York statutes. And again, make your best judgment. I ask you in part, any questions? Yeah?
If there's a treatise that's in multiple resources, do we pick different ones for each resource, or?
Up to you. Might be interesting to see the same treatise in different resources. Unlikely, but there are some places where that might actually happen. Ask you to take a quick look at BNA, either going through the topic list of the library homepage, or if you want to look at BNA on Bloomberg, since it's in both platforms, that's up to you. Just let me know what you choose. And then search it. In the list of BNA on the library homepage, I'll go there quickly. Come on. You can go into a particular title, or Bloomberg is more likely where you can search across all of the titles. Either way, if you want to search it, like we search the pension benefits reporter in our example in class, and that's going through the library. So I went to BNA and listed product by subject, so this would be subject specific, or again on Bloomberg you could search across all of the BNA titles, the portfolios on Bloomberg. Again, just let me know what you do. And then I asked you to go into Lexis to search the New York Law Journal. The reason I specify Lexis is it's not on Westlaw. Again, just state your search and did you find anything useful. Again, just to give you exposure to the New York Law Journal. It sounds like you all are planning on staying in New York, so the New York Law Journal is an important resource to know about. And last but not least, and I will ask evaluation questions on all of the assignments, pretty much rate the different types of resources. So by types of resource, I mean encyclopedias, website, law reviews, what's listed here, on a scale of 1 to 5. So was encyclopedia great, or was it totally useless? Likewise, websites, law reviews, treatises, and BNA. Explain why you chose your number. And where would you recommend your best friend, so someone you want to give good advice, where would you recommend your best friend to start? And explain why you're making that recommendation. questions? This is probably the longest assignment. It will take you a while, budget a fair amount of time. It's the longest because there are just so many resources to cover. The next assignment's going to be just on statutes. It's not the most difficult one, in part because you've all seen secondary sources before, and it is somewhat repetitive because there are so many resources, so it shouldn't be difficult in that sense. But because there are a lot of resources, and we went through a whole lot of different types of resources in class, I fully expect some, if not all of you, to start to get confused about where's BNA and what the heck is CCH, and that's perfectly fine. Come ask, again, those kind of general questions. If it's Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, I'm not going to be here, but a reference librarian will be, so you can ask her, and she'll be happy to help you as well. I will respond to email as quickly as I can. And again, the theme is don't hesitate to ask. Please, please, please don't spend 2 hours in frustration. This is not supposed to be a scavenger hunt. It's not supposed to be an exercise in frustration. It's supposed to be an exercise in practicing that perfect forehand topspin down the line shot. Okay, ready to try some issue spotting? Again, really quick, we won't go in much depth as we did with our ERISA issue. So for those of you, and we'll do both out of fairness, so everybody gets a little bit of a head start. So for those of you with your last name beginning A to L, your client is a shareholder activist and would like to investigate whether various corporations in which he invests uses profits to further political agendas he opposes. Specifically, he wants to request campaign filings and tax returns, I'm summarizing here, for the super PACs and the large publicly traded oil companies and investment banks to see where their corporate charitable contributions go and how much tax they actually pay the federal government in New York State. So, that's sort of the background of what he's interested in. First, he would like to find out if corporate and nonprofit organization tax returns can be requested from the relevant agencies pursuant to the New York and federal Freedom of Information laws. If so, he would like you to submit requests for this information to the relevant agencies. So, who's the actor?
Shareholder.
That's not very good. Do I have another one? Okay. So, shareholder. Who else is involved?
Corporation.
The corporation involved in what the shareholder wants to do?
I would say yes, because you're talking about what type of documentation you want to get from them, and also what type of documentation is held by the state.
Okay, so what is it that the shareholder wants to do?
He wants to figure out what type of money, how the corporation is spending their.
Ultimately, yes, but in order for him to figure that out, what does he want you as his attorney to do?
File a request with the New York and Federal Freedom of Information. Blah, blah, blah.
Helena, do you have another take on it?
We'll just get the corporation's tax returns.
Tax return. Okay. Where are we?
New York.
Okay. Why?
To see where the money is pretty much being spent.
Actually, let's say, how about follow the money? And this might be a situation, how? How are you going to achieve his goal of following the money by filing a request to get the tax return to see what's up with a corporation?
FOIL laws.
What does FOIL mean?
Freedom of Information law.
Okay.
And FOIA.
You are a little bit knowledgeable of this area. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so in there, what would you say some of, all right, actually, let me go a different way. So how would you state the issue? One sentence, two max. If you had to tell your friend, I've got this assignment and I have to research, how would you fill in the rest of that sentence? What are some of the key terms? Which is another way of asking the same question, actually.
Just whether you can access corporate tax returns and campaign filings through state and federal freedom of information laws.
Corporate tax returns and campaign filings through freedom of information laws. Okay. So, Part 2 here says, so we'd like you to first figure out if these can be requested from the federal agencies pursuant to the Federal Information Law, so pretty much what Adam just said here. Second part is, if so, he would like you to submit requests for the information to the relevant agencies. So there's another relevant body here, which I actually just said the answer. Who did we forget to list under who?
Agencies.
Agencies. Okay. I didn't plan ahead very well, I apologize. I didn't leave enough room for issue number 2 for our M to Z group. So your client wants to introduce yet another bottled tea product, this one unsweetened, to appeal to the health and weight conscious market. She will need to engage in a massive marketing campaign in order to compete with the many, many products out there. She plans to highlight in her advertising materials on the label that the tea contains polyphenols, which is actually true. Tea does contain polyphenols, which have been found to possibly reduce the risks of cancer and heart disease, but she needs guidance to avoid any liability under New York and federal law for false labels or advertising for food. So she wants to be able to say how wonderful these polyphenols are, but doesn't want to get into any trouble for saying something that might not be true. Okay, so who? Our client is what does she do or want to do?
Tea producer.
Is she a tea producer, or has she produced the tea yet?
No.
So
I wannabe bottled tea producer.
how about a prospective? Wannabe is good too, but its prospective is slightly shorter. Tea producer. Okay. What does she want to do?
She wants to advertise that they're healthy.
She wants to advertise health benefits. I know my handwriting is awful. What else does she want to do? Or what does she want to avoid, which can sometimes be more important than what?
Liability for falsely or misbranding on the tea product itself.
Misbranding tea. Okay. Where? here's an example. Why? I'm not sure that's relevant. Like I said, these questions don't always apply to every single issue.
She wants to make money.
Well, okay, yeah. Is that relevant to what you think the research will be in this issue?
It could be in terms of fraudulent labeling, if you're doing it just to, trick people into buying it.
Well, that's what she wants to avoid, right?
Right.
So she's not trying to fraudulently label anything, that's why she's hiring you. Okay, how? Again, not sure how important how is, but any thoughts on if there is an important how? It doesn't have to be. You're allowed to leave categories blank if they just don't help. Okay, so same question. You're going to tell your friend, I have to research this issue for my advanced legal research class, and it is...
What's the liability for false advertising and label?
Liability for false. Okay. Is this a products liability issue?
Advertising. I know the issue.
Okay, but yes, definitely advertising. Is it a also a products liability issue? How come? Okay. Everybody hear that? No? Or you don't agree?
No, I couldn't understand, I don't know.
John
We
said,
don't have the product.
Oh, okay.
we don't have a product to be liable for yet. Hopefully never, but you can't have product liability without having produced the product yet, I think. Okay. Any questions? If you want to get started, I'm happy to hang around for 10 minutes, or we can go home and get some dinner and start tomorrow. Up to you. I know, put like that, but no, I'm. And next class, we will start with statutes. And please bring your laptops, is always a good idea, because we will be, the workshops will be on the computers. Actually, the workshop will be some instant polls through Twen, so a little bit different than we've been doing. Try different technology and see what sticks, see what's fun, hopefully. Okay. So I'll hang out until you filter out. And please do stay. I wasn't trying to talk you into a decision there. And I do have to fix.
did my workshop from the one we did, it's number 7.
Right.
Do you want to take that, or should I hold on to it?
No, hold on to it.
Okay.
Again, the workshops are, unless there's something you had a question about it, but if
No,
we're
okay.
comfortable.
Okay.
Thanks, you too.